Today we're going to talk about pairs of angles, section 1.4. Pairs of angles. There's a lot of different types of angles out there. And pairs of angles just means the relationship between different angles. Okay, so today we're going to talk about a lot of the relationships or pairs of angles. If you look up at the front of the board, all of the posters up to the very top, we're going to talk about 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to talk about 5 of those different posters up there today. Okay, so again, if you kind of look up there at the board, we're going to talk about a lot of those different posters. Pairs of angles, section 1.4. First thing we're going to talk about today is adjacent angles. Has anybody ever heard the word adjacent just used in regular text, regular vocabulary? Have we heard that before, adjacent? What does the word adjacent mean, Clark? Have you heard just the term adjacent in regular text? What does it mean to you?
Cross each other?
Adjacent doesn't mean cross from each other. It actually means next to. Okay, if something's adjacent, it's actually next to it. All right, so adjacent is two angles in the same plane with a common vertex and a common side. Kind of the key here. They have to have a common side, but no common interior points. Adjacent angles that are next to each other. All right. So if I were to draw this up here, and I have an angle here, and I have an angle there, angles 1 and 2, those would be adjacent angles. If you look up on the board, the poster right there, does everybody see that poster? There's the adjacent angles poster. Okay, it's angles that are right next to each other. Adjacent angles, angles that are next to each other. Next, we have linear pair. What's the root word of linear? The root word of linear is a line. So, it's a pair of adjacent angles. What does pair mean? How many does pair usually represent? Two. So, it's two angles that form a line. So, for example, those two angles would be a linear pair. They are two angles next to each other that form a line. That's a linear pair. Complementary angles. Complementary angles. Two angles whose measures have a sum of 90 degrees. So that means two angles that add up to 90 degrees. If you look up there on the board or on the wall, the 90 degrees poster is the one above up there. Okay? So complementary angles, sum of 90 degrees. Can anybody give me an example of two complementary angles? Beast, what are two angles that add up to 90 degrees? 45 and 45. Those are two complementary angles. Chris, what's another pair of angles?
50 and 10.
See?
Oh, wait, 90. 50 and 30. Right.
50 and 40. How
40,
are related?
50 and 40 would be the complementary angles there. Okay, and then there's 4 examples here as well. Supplementary angles. If complementary means they add up to 90, supplementary means they add up to 180. So supplementary angles are two angles that add up to 180. Again, if you look up here, there's a poster right there for you. Okay, supplementary angles. Now, a lot of times students confuse them. Here's kind of the way I use to tell students, trying to help you out. Think about it. In the alphabet, okay, complementary starts with the letter C. Supplementary starts with the letter S. Which one comes first in the alphabet? Complementary, C, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I have the number 90 and the number 180. Which one comes first? 90. Complementary comes first. 90 comes first. Complementary, 90. Supplementary comes second. 180 comes second. Supplementary, 180. Okay. And the last one we're in here is we have vertical angles. I love vertical angles. There's a lot of things about vertical angles you need to know. You need to remember vertical angles basically throughout the whole year. So, key term here. Vertical angles are the non-adjacent angles formed by two intersecting angles. Vertical angles are a lot of times what I call angles that are across from each other. Okay, if you look up on the wall above, there's a poster way up there above that shows vertical angles. Notice they are across from each other. All right, if I were to draw angles here, 1 and 2, those would be vertical angles. They are across from each other. All right, so adjacent angles, angles that are next to each other. Vertical angles, angles that are across from each other. So let's look at the first couple problems here. Same idea. I have angle pairs here. I have examples of adjacent angles, examples of linear pairs of angles. and examples of vertical angles. So 1, 2, and 3. It says tell whether angle 7 and angle 8 in each figure are only adjacent, are adjacent and form a linear pair, or are not adjacent. So I'm looking at number 1 here. It's angles 7 and 8. Who thinks they know the relationship of those two angles? Katie, what are you thinking? That would be a linear pair. Why would you say that? Because, yeah, they make a line. They are next to each other. They share a line. And they form a line. So that would be a linear pair. 2. Bannister, what are you thinking on 2? I have angle 7 and I have angle 8. What would be a good way to describe those? Are they adjacent, linear pair, or not adjacent? Remember, what's a linear mean? Linear means they form a what? Linear means they form a line. Do you agree there's not really a line there with 7 and 8? They don't form a straight line. So they would be, what'd you say? They would be adjacent. Why are they just adjacent? Because they are just next to each other, and that's it. So those would be just adjacent. What about 3? What do you think about 3? Are they adjacent, linear pair, or not adjacent? They are not vertical, actually. Are they adjacent, though? Do we all agree they're not adjacent? They're not next to each other, right? Yeah, that's all it is. They're just not adjacent. There's nothing actually really in common about these. They're just not adjacent. Now, they are not vertical because they're not truly across from each other. To truly be across from each other, 8 would have to be down here. Okay? And we'll look at those the more we look at it. Let's try some more here. I want to tell whether the indicated angles are only adjacent, are adjacent, form a linear pair, or not adjacent. I want angles 5 and 4. So here's angles 5 and 4. Spencer, what are you thinking there? You say not. What's adjacent mean? They are adjacent, right? There you go. Because they are next to each other. They are sharing a side. Adjacent shares a common side. They share that common side, so they'd be adjacent. Angles 1 and 4. Are angles 1 and 4 adjacent, a linear pair, or not adjacent? Jeremiah, what would you say? They would be not adjacent. Good work, sir. They are not adjacent. If I were to give you angle 1, which ones would be adjacent to angle 1, Jeremiah? 2 and 5 would be the adjacent angles, right? Good job, sir. And 6, I have angles 2 and 3. So here's angles 2 and 3. What would you say about those, Parker? Would they be adjacent? Do they form a linear pair or not adjacent? So let's go through this first. Are they adjacent? I have angles 2 and 3 here. Do they share a side? So are they adjacent then? Yeah, right. So they have to be adjacent, I agree. They share a side. They share this side right here. So now the next question is, do they form a line? If I combine them, do they form a line? So that would mean they are a linear pair. Good work, sir. Yep. So first thing to check is, are they adjacent? If they're adjacent, do they form a line? Then they're a linear pair. All right, try 7, 8, and 9 on your own here. Take a couple seconds and try these 3. Find a pair of vertical angles. There are 2 answers there. Find a linear pair. There are 5 answers there. And then find an angle adjacent to angle 4. There is 1 answer there. Take a couple seconds to try those 3 on your own. All right, let's go through these here. So I want a pair of vertical angles. I said there were 2 answers there. Anderson, what's one of the pairs of vertical angles?
3 and 4.
Shut up. How about, what'd you say?
1 and 6.
Angles 1 and 6. 1 and 6 would be vertical angles. 1 and 6 are across from each other. Yeah, okay. What's the other pair of vertical angles, Joe McCoolidge? We said 1 and 6. Guys, 3 and 4 is not a vertical pair. 5, what? 2 2 and 5? Yes. Okay, I thought you said 5 and 6 for a second. 2 and 5. Yeah, 2 and 5 are vertical. Why? Because those are across from each other. All right? I need a linear pair. There are 5 answers here. Blake, what's one of the linear pairs? 1 and 2. Great answer. What's another linear pair? Maxie? Oh, you had 1 and 2 too? Can you look up there and give me another one though? Three and 4. 3 and 4 is a linear pair. Still not vertical. What's another linear pair, Callie? 5 and 6. There are 2 more linear pairs. Trent? 1 and 5, which means the last linear pair is what? Audrey? Hannah? 2 and 6? Hannah. Audrey. 9. An angle adjacent to angle 4. What does the term adjacent mean, Brock? So which one's next to angle 4? Where's angle 4 at? Angle 4 is here. Which angle is right next to angle 4? Huh? So which one's adjacent? Angle 4. But it's still adjacent. Adjacent angles are linear pairs. So, or linear pairs are adjacent angles. So that's fine. Yep, good work. Next thing we're going to do is talk about complementary and supplementary angles here. Remember, complementary means to add up to what, Heston? 90. Supplementary means to add up to what, Reed? 180. Complementary 90, supplementary 180. So let's look at it here. Number 10. I have 2 angles, 45 and 45. Are they complementary, supplementary, or neither? Simeon, what would you say? There would be what? Complementary. Nice job. And 11. I have 2 angles, 110 and 110. First off, what type of angles are those, guys? Those would be? Vertical. Those would be vertical angles because they're across from each other. They're vertical angles. Are the vertical angles there complementary, supplementary, or neither? What do you say, Chris? They'd be neither. Get your math back. That's good, sir. All right, 12 here. It says I want to find the measure of each of the following angles. I want to find the complement of angle S. So if angle S is 56 degrees, how would I find the complement of that? Becca, what would you say I'd have to do? That is a great way. I'd take 90 minus 56, which gets me what? 34 degrees. So the complement of that has to be 34 degrees. What about 13? It says the supplement of angle S. Well, complement is 90, supplement is 180. So how would I find the supplement? I would subtract from 180. So 180 minus 56. Clark, what's that give me? What? 124. All right, take a couple seconds. Try numbers 14 and 15 on your own. All right, 14 here. I want to find the complement of angle R. Caden, what would that be?
68 degrees.
68 degrees. Good work, sir. 15, I want to find the supplement. Parker, what would that be? 158 degrees. Good work. Last thing we're going to do today is do a little bit of problem solving here. It says angle LMN and angle UVW are complementary. What's that mean, Katie, if they're complementary? They add up equal to 90. Does everybody agree with that? If they're complementary, they add up equal to 90. Okay. It says find the measure of each angle if LMN is 3x plus 5 and UVW is 2x. How would I find the measure of each angle here? Who thinks they can figure out how I could find the measure of each angle? Clark, what are you thinking, bud? Set them equal to what? Ooh, if I set them equal to each other, would that help me out? Let's think about this, right? We're said they're complementary, right? So complementary, they add up to 90, right? So if I set them equal to each other, I had to get something like this. 3x plus 5 equals 2x. I ended up with like x equals negative 5. that working? So that's not going to be it. What did we say, though? What's the first sentence we said? We said they're complementary. What does complementary mean? They add up equal to 90. So what am I going to do with these two expressions? I'm going to add them, 3x plus 5 plus 2x, and now I set it equal to 90 because they're complementary. Let's try that now. So 3x plus 5 plus 2x, well, that gets me 5x plus 5 equals 90. Go ahead. Now I subtract 5. 5x equals 85. I get x equals 17. Is that my answer? No. What do I want to do?
Subtract 17 is 90.
No.
Plug it.
I want to plug it back in. So I plugged it in the first one. 3 times 17 is 51. 51 plus 5 is 56. Plug it in the second one. 17 times 2 is 34. My angles are 56 and 34. Those are complementary angles now. What happens if I said all of a sudden they were supplementary? What do I add them up and set them equal to now? 180. Okay, so recognize the differences there. Here's your assignment.